Okay, Brittany, or anybody, any sign of the mayor?
I have not heard anything, but I can check with Jennifer real quick.
That'd be great, thanks.
All right.
Tracy, I saw you just tuned in. Any sightings of the mayor?
I saw him earlier this morning, but not recently. I'll see if I can locate him. Just a minute.
Jennifer just tried to reach out to him, but she said if there's enough for a quorum to go ahead and start.
Okay, I think Councilmember Parker is on, Councilmember Gregg is on, so we've got a quorum. Let's see if Tracy has any luck. We'll give her 1 minute and we'll go.
He just logged in. He should be signing on now.
Okay. Thank you. Here he comes. And there he is. All right. Mayor, you ready to go?
All good. Hi, everybody.
How we doing? All right, I'd like to call to order the August 16th, 2022 meeting of the City of Charleston Traffic and Transportation Committee. Thank everybody for being here and begin with a moment of silence, please. Thank you. First item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from August 9th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additions, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next on our agenda is a Charleston Bike Share Program presentation by Lime. Mr. Somerville, do you want to introduce this and we'll hand it over to the gang at Lime? Recognizing with this, we're going to get a presentation and probably have a few questions. I'd just like to ask you all to keep your comments to sort of 5 to 7 minutes, if that's okay, and then we'll go from there. Mr. Somerville.
Thank you, sir. Yes, we have Ms. Tricia Bodie and Bradford Johnson with Lime that's on the call. That's going to do a presentation. Of course, Lime is our current bike share company in the city, and they just I asked for them to come and give a presentation to the committee to let you know what they're doing, all the good stuff they're doing within the city, and our plans on moving forward. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Tricia and Ms. Bradford.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me?
We can?
Can you see me, my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. We're gonna share this so it goes up. That is not right. Hold on. Got it?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for inviting us. We're excited to be here and talk about this program. We're also just really excited about everything that we're doing in Charleston. So just for anyone who's not fully aware, we are the world's largest shared electric vehicle company. But we're going to dive, because we've got a short window of time, we're going to dive into some of the details. So as you can see on this graph, in May, we had about 5,200 rides. You can see as of July 2022, we have about 7,300, which is a 42% increase in completed trips compared to May. Talk a little bit more about our partnership as well as our relationship with the city. The important highlights is that we're doing bi-weekly meetings with the city of Charleston as well as MUSC Health to discuss the program, specifically implementing it, talking about things that we can do to improve it, and whatever compliance issues are coming up. But I will say that we have this regular call. We're also on emails and constant communications to really kind of mitigate any problems and come up with solutions when we need them. Most importantly, when it comes to our work, safety is our top priority, period. The reason why I start off with this is because it is our cornerstone of our work. And if you've been on one of our bikes, you will see that when you open up the app, there are these little pop-ups that come up to tell you about recommending that you wear a helmet, talking about checking the brakes, and all of the safety features that one would need to know before you get on one of our devices. And this is just something, a part of our brand, something that's very important to us. But you can always, if you go through the app, you will see all of these beautiful little screens come up. And then today we're going to focus a little bit on parking. I think this was the main thing that Robbie had asked us to talk about, but I just want to kind of put this statement out to the council as well as to the community, is that we work with communities and partners to improve, innovate, and customize parking to create an aesthetically pleasing approach to micromobility. This is our focus specifically in Charleston, as well as I know this is a top priority for you guys. But it is a main focus as we look and we use our data to really kind of figure out where we're going with the program. So I'm going to pass it over to Bradford to talk about using data to guide our work.
Thank you, Tricia. So we are micromobility, but we are also big data, and we have the ability to use that data to work with our partnerships, our towns, our cities, municipalities, academic folks to help improve in all aspects. This particular shot, all the blue dots in there are the current parking corrals. And what this allows us to look at and say is that the vast majority of the trip starts are in and from and right near the parking corrals there. Next, please. Thank you. This is a great couple shots, screenshots that we've got. And on the left, basically what we're looking at there is when someone opens the Lime app, it shows where they are doing it on the peninsula. On the left-hand side with app opens, the darker spots, as you can see, it looks like down the center, you're probably been in Charleston for a while, like King, meaning that corridor there from north to south. A ton of people that are opening the app looking for a bike share from those locations. Then we move over to the right side, and what we've got there, that's the missed demand. So as you can see, there are a ton of people who are opening the app that really want to ride that ended up not taking the trip. And it's the exact inverse. So on the green is what you're seeing is where most of the people opened up the app and then did not get a chance to take a trip on a bike, shared bike.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we use this data. And the reason why we're showing is to kind of paint the picture of how we're using the data to provide recommendations to yourselves as well as the partnership. But as you can see, we have 24 parking pins and location corrals within the Charleston mandatory parking zone. It's also important to note that Charleston is one of 2 in the United States that have an entire zone, an entire market that is all mandatory parking. Again, 2 in the entire country that have mandatory parking, and that is the city of Charleston. The important thing to note here is that we have a 2.26 parking pin square mile zone. And the reason why we're outlining that, because this is where we see that there is a demand for more corrals in this market and in the city of Charleston. And right here is a good comparison, just to kind of give you an idea of some ratios with other markets and cities around the world. I'll use Grand Rapids because, again, that's a mandatory parking zone throughout the entire city. But as you can see in their square mile, they have about 50 corrals and or parking pins. Whereas in the city of Charleston right now, we have about 2.26. I did round down to 2. But it gives you a better idea of one of the things that we're looking at to make recommendations to increase more parking corrals. So we can really meet the needs of the user and as well as your constituents in the city of Charleston. And I think this is a really important aspect. I like to talk about how we create high parking performance, and we're using kind of 5 ways of looking at this. One is that we use data to guide our strategy. We work on signage and branding, which we find to be extremely helpful in increasing high performance. Rider communication, technological enhancements, and then obviously our action team here.
Yep, so on this slide, if you don't mind, I'll jump in.
Sure.
So on this slide, basically, again, the red is where we've got parking pins. And interesting enough, the green dots on there is where a person who was riding a shared bike tried to terminate a trip and was not allowed to, and then forced back into one of the parking pins. So again, some really cool data that allows us to try and work with you all using the data to maximize working with the transportation committee and serving the constituents of Charleston.
And then here is another way that we're doing this, and this is really on the signage and branding. We're obviously working with the DRC to finalize the naming and branding, which will help a tremendous amount once we get that all finalized. But in the meantime, we've put kind of this template up that we're going to put, because as you know, I was driving around yesterday, we were on our bikes. There isn't a ton of signage, which you know, people kind of can get lost without. So we're really putting a focus on making sure that we get this branding and the signage up. Because as we know, it is shown to increase parking compliance when there is proper amounts of branding and signage as well.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing that we're doing is we're putting reminders in app to the riders of the city of Charleston that kind of reminds them that it's a mandatory parking zone. And why we do this is because, you know, if they don't know, that could be part of the problem why people aren't putting them in. So we're going to continue to increase our communication in app to the city of Charleston to remind them that these are mandatory parking zones and that they need to be put into the corrals. And then Bradford, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, so one of the 5 pillars that we've got is continuing to use our technological enhancements. So basically what we're trying to say here on this slide is that we've got a new ability to what we call triangulate, which allows us to use not only the individual's phone that they're using to start and end the trip, but it also ties to the vehicle. And then that triangulates through GPS to give us a much more precise ability to drive them to the actual corral. And in that, there's some things that happen, but I mean, even one of the things, it's like a quick 1 second latency, but because of that, it allows us the triangulation, which is a significant improvement. And I think Charleston is one of a few people on the experimental list on this. So we're always asking, and HQ has given us and put Charleston on this list to be one of the first to use the triangulation method to increase driving people into the corrals. It's been great.
And then lastly, on our pillars, it's really about communication and being here for the city of Charleston. We really try to think like locals, be here as much as possible. And really our team here of, you know, being available through communication. I can say that we talk with the team at the city of Charleston as well as the MUSC partnership weekly through either communications or our meetings. And anytime there's a compliance issue, either if it comes through a constituent, the mayor, or the city council, or any of those issues, you know, it gets handed to us and then we handle it. For the customers and constituents, they have a plethora of ways of communicating with us: text, email, phone, all that kind of good stuff. And we also have an email address specific to Charleston. And because I know we had limited time, there's a lot we would love to bring and tell you guys more about, but we know parking was something you guys wanted to talk about, but we're here for some questions. And we really just thank the city for allowing us to be your partner. We're really enjoying this partnership and looking forward to growing.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. If we can just take the screen down, and I'm going to open it up to members of the committee. Are there any questions you have of Ms. Boddy or Mr. Johnson about their presentation or any other matter related to Lime? Look around, Councilmember Gregg. I know Councilmember Parker's out there. Mr. Mayor, any questions? Yes, sir.
I would like to ask a question. I know that I rode one when, you know, on the opening day. The electric bikes are really cool. And boy, you can get around. Of course, Charleston's topography is very flat, and and you can do well on a regular bicycle around here. I'm just curious, do y'all sometimes do a hybrid, a mixture of the electric bikes along with the old-fashioned regular bikes? I mean, I think some consumers, I know that it would be the case for me. I'd just assume have a regular bike than the electric one because we're not climbing any big hills or anything like that.
That's a great question. Our current mix of vehicles would be all electric and all e-assist. The combination would be in some municipalities, universities, cities. We also include stand-up scooters, but all of our bikes are the new Gen 4 best-in-class e-assist. I've had the benefit of actually handing you the bike on that particular day, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. And then just the benefit of being in Charleston, building the team for the last 2 months, and had the distinct pleasure of riding around on the majority of your streets, actually up and down and across, visiting all, and then make sure the corrals are tight. And it's a phenomenal, you are absolutely correct, phenomenal, because it's flat, but there's a lot of just time where you're just cruising along and just having a nice little thing. And then if you get a little tired or you want a little bit of a boost, you just hit it, and then it gives you that nice little e-assist. We call it such an elegant ride. I mean, as you're just cruising around the peninsula here in Charleston. Now, I've enjoyed it immensely, and I think a lot of other people have too.
Yeah. Okay. Appreciate that. So, I mentioned to you even on the opening day about the possibility of doing a station or two West Ashley along the West Ashley Greenway that some folks might enjoy using the bikes over there. I guess this question also, the prior question raises in my mind our policy over there that there are no, quote, motorized vehicles allowed on the Greenway. Robbie, does our policy disallow the use of a e-bike even? I guess I just have to ask that question. I don't know. We have to think about our policy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get with legal and dig into that a little bit more, because I know, the questions that have come up before about the e-bikes being considered a low-speed vehicle or something like that, in which they are not. So I'll work with legal to see if we can allow those on the Greenway.
Yeah, it's we need to figure that out long-term one way or the other at some point, particularly when we get our bike ped bridge completed across the Ashley. You're going to want to have some stations West Ashley for folks going back and forth.
And Mr. Mayor, I might add that I've had the pleasure of also being on the West Ashley Trail, and I brought my own personal bike a couple trips, threw it in the back of the rental car, and it is an e-bike. And as I was cruising up and down on my personal e-bike on the West Ashley Trail, I would say from what I saw, those 2 times I was on it, there was probably, anecdotal at best, 25% of the people that passed me were also on e-bikes as well.
Yeah, no, I think we just have to make our policy clear and frankly allow them. I think the main reason for the rules was to keep like golf carts and other road vehicles off the path. But anyway, we need to figure that out.
Well, by the time we build the bridge that we're going to hear about in just a few minutes, fully 3/4 of bikes on the road, if not more, are going to be electric or electric assist. So
yeah,
we recognize that.
Right.
Any other questions? I've got a couple questions. Thanks for your presentation. A lot of it was sort of centered on policy and what y'all are doing with your customers. I've got a couple of questions sort of practically about management of the bike system here on the peninsula. As you know, I live on the peninsula. I'm around every day, and we've had this conversation before. A couple things is, one is about notification to your riders internally about some of the rules of the road that are particular to Charleston. One is no riding on sidewalks. We don't allow that here, and there's been a lot of riding on sidewalks. And then the second is some kind of notification, either by sticker or on your app, about riding on one-way streets. And if someone goes on a one-way street, it seems to me that you ought to have the technology to stop them. So that's my first question on notification.
Yep, as it relates to sidewalks, we have actually, we've got a no sidewalk riding sticker, and as they come in for preventive maintenance, we put that right on the base. It's about 10 inches long, about an inch and a half, and it's the black on white, so it's very visible. And then we also have the ability to periodically push, as Tricia had mentioned, push in-app messages to the riders. There is a law of diminishing returns that if we bombarded them, as we all do, sometimes we get, in-app messages from news articles that we're reading and stuff like that. We keep clicking the X to get rid of them, but we certainly can do that. As it relates to one-way streets, I would have to check into that. I am not aware of anything that would stop any of our vehicles at any of our cities from traveling on a street in the opposite way of a one-way. I'd have to double check that for you.
I mean, it seems as the technology and the software gets better, that would be something as you geofence and keep an eye on where all your bikes are, that it's got to be out there somewhere in the future.
Yeah, and things are getting certainly better. We do also appreciate and rely on good human behavior as well.
Right, I get that. Like I said, one-way streets, big issue. So the other question I've got is on the Lime Action Team and the repositioning and making sure that we geofence and get the bikes in the corrals. I'm not sure if members of the committee or others listening are aware, the bike share program we've got now is a little different from the bike share program we had before, in that there are no, at the corrals, locks and lock in. These bikes actually are just placed and not locked into the corrals. So, I mean, I think from my perspective, and I think there's others who've heard from our constituency about abandoned bikes and the speed in which they're retrieved and repositioned. So how are we doing with the Lime Action Team, and where are we with making sure we've got people on the streets to attend to that promptly?
Great question. We appreciate the communication in the various ways that we get it from Robbie, and he's great. And then I manage 6 markets in the Southeast, even though I've spent most of the last 2 months here in Charleston developing the team and building the team, but I'm running around. So we've got a fail safe in one of them, is that when the email comes in, it not only comes to me, but it comes to Tricia, and she is in an office most of them. So she might give me a phone call and say, "Hey, Bradford, did you see this?" And, "Oh, got it," or, "Oh, appreciate the heads up." And we dispatch the team on a nightly basis. We have teams that after hours go around and swap batteries. And then if there's a battery swap that also entails a move task, meaning it's not in a corral, they pick it up and then they would move it. So it's both proactive, meaning we do it without being told if we see something that's not in there. And then we also appreciate your communication to us. And then we dispatch one of the members from our team. We are also incredibly pleased to announce that we have hired an operations manager who is domiciled here in the Charleston area. She lives in West Ashley, and she will be joining the team on September 1st. And at that time, we'll be adding another additional couple local members here in Charleston to help us continue to augment and do the sweeps.
Yeah, and I would just add to that some of the bullets that we talked about in that 5 action plan too. The one, obviously the action team, but the other 4 are also in place and being implemented to really kind of continue to enhance that and mitigate those issues.
Great, thanks. And then one last thing, and I think we talked about this in our last meeting, is some way for us internally and you internally to share data and dashboards so we see sort of in real time rides, centers of activity, all that kind of stuff. Is that something that we can push forward?
Yep. I think with Robbie or whoever, you let us know and we can develop that for sure. Absolutely.
That'd be great. Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
So I bet you're addressing this, but just case in point, I got to City Hall one day and I heard y'all charge extra if people don't get the bike to the corral, but there was a group of about a dozen bikes that were down on the corner, just 20 yards away from the corral, and they didn't take them to the corral. So I'm out there that morning, like trying to move all the bikes down to the corral, and y'all have a locking mechanism or something on them that makes them pretty difficult to move. So can y'all give us like a secret code or something? that City personnel can unlock it to roll them down somewhere else if that occasion arises?
A few things there. I do remember that day, Mr. Mayor. I do remember the phone calls coming in.
Okay.
And helping to attend to the situation. Two, yes, there is what we call free roll. And we have set up, I think the gentleman's first name is Philip Overcash, and a few of his folks to get the free roll. But if there's anyone else that needs that, if you just somehow send that through to me, I can get that done. And basically all it is it's just like the app. You just scan it like the app, and then it'll free roll anywhere you want it to go.
Okay, sounds good.
Right.
We can get that done.
We see the Councilmember Parker. Councilmember Parker has her hand up. Councilmember Parker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is for the representatives, the live representatives. Have y'all looked at any possibilities on James Island?
I mean, we're always, investigating. To be honest with you, I think unless we were directed otherwise, we were focusing on with you all just on the peninsula.
Correct.
And then if things were going to expand to Johns Island, James Island, Mount Pleasant, all that stuff, that would be directed, from you all. So we'd certainly love to have that conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a part of it, really the kind of the pilot aspect of it too. Really, this is an opportunity potentially that we could have with it. But we're using the data right now that we have to use kind of that educated data to give recommendations on where we think we could potentially expand. But we're always open to those conversations and welcome them.
And I would like to add, there's still a few things that we're working out. One being the name, working with legal. Hopefully, we were told that we should be able to get the name resolved by October, in which we will have the bikes wrapped and with the color design that was approved by the city's design review committee. And so once we get that completed, as Tricia and Bradford indicated, they'll provide us with the ridership information. We will expand the number of corrals is our plan in the future. That will include West Ashley, James Johns Island, and as well as Daniel Island.
Yeah, and the signage and the branding will be a really great thing.
Yeah.
And it's in other markets and other cities,
Yep.
It's very helpful. And once we get there, we'll be able to see kind of the data difference too between having the good signage and where we are right now.
Yep.
Great. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'm going to move on. Got a huge agenda here on a limited amount of time. Thank you all so much for your report. We'll look forward to continued partnership and hearing from you on a regular basis and to getting that data share online as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. We really appreciate you and we are thoroughly enjoyed this partnership. So thank
Great.
you.
Thank you all very much. All right, next on our agenda is E-Carriage presentation. Mr. Somerville, I guess we got Mr. Kelly online. Take it away.
Is this my turn now?
Your turn.
Yeah.
All right.
So this
I didn't know if Mr. Somerville had to talk. Sorry.
Hang on one sec, just so we sort of clear. It's a little bit unusual in that we sort of have somebody on an agenda that we don't have jurisdiction over, but looking forward to hearing your presentation. Again, we've got a big agenda, so please keep your comments as focused as you can. I'm going to give you 5 to 7 minutes as well, please. Thanks.
All right. Let's see what we can do here. Well, anyway, I'm Kyle Kelly. Just real quick on who I am. Some of you guys might know me or might know my store. It's called Uncle Kyle's Sweater Emporium. And it is, yes, a Christmas sweater store on King Street. It's been a part of Charleston now for the past 9 years. It's currently up for 2 world records for the largest sweater collection in the world. If not, you might know me from my time at MUSC. My dog Bear and I have been volunteering at MUSC. We have over 820 hours spent at MUSC doing that. So much so that Bear took home the 2019 South Carolina Healthcare Hero of the Year Award. Now, I say these things not to be braggadocious, but just to show you what level that I put in when it comes to passionate about things. That takes us to the E-Carriage. Now, if you don't know what the E-Carriage is, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a fully electric, horseless carriage. It's absolutely beautiful. It has 4 rows of bench seats. The detail work in the seating, it's leather stitched seats with buttons. And then you have a 5th seat in the back, which is historically known as the groom seat. And then, of course, you have the driver's seat, which allows room for the driver and a tour guide. It holds up to 18 passengers. I say up to because we all know that passengers are different shapes and sizes. So we can hold up to 18 of them. It's got the fringe roof line that you would see standard on any historical carriage. The pinstriping is all hand done. The detail work, again, I built this to, I've said it before, to really be the Cadillac of carriages. And the time frame from what it was built, it's pretty mirror off of something that was built between 1875 and 1905. So it's early turn of the century as far as that goes. It has a 9 kW motor with custom drive axle on it, so it's got plenty of power, but it's all controlled by the computer system that's on board. So that is neck down to a beautiful walking speed to just cruise along the tour, the historic areas of Charleston. It's got safety lights all the way around it, including headlights, turn signals, 4-way hazard lamps, reverse lights, brake lights, you name it. It's got lights. It's got, lights underneath the seats. It's got running boards, 2 sets of running boards. And you can kind of see the picture behind me here, but it's got 2 sets of running boards. Runs the whole length of the vehicle so that people can get off and on safely if necessary, especially in an emergency or whatever. It's got an electronic brake, so an e-brake, but it is electric, which is awesome. Just push button and that thing locks up real nice for safety. Whenever I do any business, it's safety first, success second. And this thing was built and designed and engineered from the ground up. And I used experts. Experts, when I mean experts, this isn't a horse carriage that I turned into some sort of moving vehicle. This was built from the ground up, engineered. Hundreds of hours of engineering went into this. Guys that have over 40 years of experience building carriages, machine shops. There's, real quick story. There's a machine shop. I visited them and I needed a part. 2 parts came in and they didn't go together. So I basically needed a spacer in between. They said I needed to be about this big. They said, listen, we really only work with big Fortune 500 companies. This is kind of too small for us, but we appreciate it. And I said, just let me bring it over, take a look at what I'm building and see if you can help me out with this. I promise you, it's like nothing you've ever seen before. I rolled it into his parking lot. He says, holy cow, you're right. This is like nothing I've ever seen before. And he said, we'll do it. He said, not only that, my wife will kill me if I don't do this job. So they helped out a lot. The technology, I have engineers and electrical engineers that worked on the wiring of it. Craftsmen, the woodworking, the details, even details of the steering wheel replicates and mimics that of the actual wooden wheels that are on the carriage itself. One of the questions originally was, what does the state consider this? Because that is a huge question. I reached out to the DMV. I've been working with the DMV and they've been really great with this. They actually passed me on. They moved it up the ladder to the Office of Regulatory Staff. I've sent that email out to a few folks here, a few council members. If you got a chance to read that, I got the blessing from the state that came from the Office of Regulatory Staff saying that if you want this throughout the state, yeah, we'll work with you to get it licensed and registered and all that. But if you wanted to run in the historic district of Charleston, South Carolina, that jurisdiction falls solely on the municipality of Charleston. So city council, yes, can make that determining factor just the same way any other tour company can be on the streets of Charleston. Insurance is also taken care of. I looked into that. I know that was another question. I will obviously have proof of insurance before we start doing anything. I want to make it clear, I'm not here to take on any other tourism, industry that's going on, or any other part of the tourism industry. I'm only asking to coexist with what already exists. When Elon Musk came out with a Tesla, he didn't say, I'm going to put Ford and GM out of business. He just offered an alternative that folks were asking for. And when I built this and when I designed this, every detail was just me listening. I listened to the residents, I listened to tourists, and this is what a lot of people have been asking for. I don't need to talk about other cities and what opportunities that have been asked, because obviously I love Charleston, and I hope that love is received back. And I'm looking for allies in this. I need, obviously this to move forward. And there have been, a lot of different things going on. I'm not asking for any infrastructure. I don't need anything built. I don't need charging stations or anything like that. I built and designed this for that reason. So you don't need that. So what I'm asking for is, obviously I need the votes today to move this on to a full city council agenda, where I can hopefully get the necessary votes to get it through city council. But today's the important part, and that's moving it on to the next step.
So,
What
Mr.
I'm
Kelly,
asking for,
I'm gonna ask you to wrap it up here.
I'm right there. Yeah, awesome. So what I'm asking for, or what I will be asking for from city council, is I'm asking it to be its own class of permit. So it would be the E-Carriage permit class, because it's not a horse carriage and it's not a bus by any means. So I'm asking for its own class of permit. And I'm also asking for the E-Carriage amendments to any ordinance that would prevent this from being on the streets of Charleston. So, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me and allowing us the opportunity to do something really cool in history. So
Great. Thank you very
that's
much.
all I got. Any questions you might
Thank you.
have? I'll try my best here.
Thank you very much. I don't believe no public comment on this. Any questions from any member of the committee? Okay, thank you. Seeing none.
I got one.
Oh, is there a question?
One quick question. So,
Sir, Councilmember Gregg.
Mr. Kelly, you sent out an email and it referenced South Carolina State Code of Laws, Section 58. Now that pertains to motor vehicle carriers. And so what my concern has been is related to Section 56, which is relating to titling and registering motor vehicles. And so I don't think we have a real clear, so I guess what I'd like to say is I disagree with your statement that the city of Charleston can pass some ordinance that allows us to ride on city streets or state roads.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So the Office of Regulatory Staff, definitely, they wanted to be very clear with that. So even though there might be some gray area, and that's why they attach their telephone number for reference, because obviously I don't know the code or the legal part, and they got with their legal department to make sure that they had the wording right. And I made sure to get that in writing, but it does fall under that jurisdiction for the municipality because it is a low-speed vehicle. And if I do want to go outside of the city, so if I wanted to go to Mount Pleasant or run this on Daniel Island, yes, I would need permission from the state, or I would have to go through each municipality each time I did this. So to run on the historic streets of Charleston, doesn't matter if it's a state road, town road, county road, it doesn't matter. It falls on the jurisdiction of the city.
All right,
Sorry, go ahead.
Member?
Yep. I think there's two separate issues. One is Section 58 that, the state's saying you're not regulated as a motor vehicle carrier. But then there's the other issue of, if it's a low speed vehicle, it still has to be registered with the DMV, and that's Section 56. And so
it does have to be registered if I choose to take it out of what was deemed, acceptable by city council as far as the city ordinances go. But yeah, if I take it anywhere outside of whatever city council says, this is the zone that you have to stay in and that you're permitted within, the city district of Charleston. Right. I would definitely, I can't just take it somewhere else and just run it on the streets like I would be able to if it was even registered as a low speed vehicle. Absolutely right. Yeah.
I think I have a different interpretation of the state law, but that's what, our attorneys can, I guess, take a look at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
But I'm just
All right.
asking for that opportunity to even prove that at city council.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Kelly? All right, thank you very much. Next on our agenda is valet parking 6-month contract extension, Mr. Somerville.
Yes, our existing valet parking franchise agreement is due to expire, I believe it's September 16th, 2022. So we're just asking for a little additional time to complete that process. We have already advertised for the pre-qualifications. We did that on August 3rd, I believe it was. The applications are due in on August 29th. And from there, we'll review the applications. We'll be able to, review the applications, certify the businesses that will be able to do valet, and hopefully be able to move forward with the bid process. So again, with it expiring next month, we're asking for 6 months, probably more time than what we need, but a little bit of additional time to complete the valet parking franchise agreement.
And Mr. Somerville, do you need a vote of this committee and council to do that, or are you just asking as a matter of policy to do that?
Basically, speaking with procurement, I think it's just a matter of policy because there's no money involved. So we just wanted to bring it to the committee and ask the committee for permission to extend it for 6 months.
All right, any member of the committee have any question or concern about the request from Mr. Somerville to extend for 6 months the contract bidding process for valet parking? I don't see any hands or anybody speaking, so I think silence as assent means go forward, prosper, and go get us some good contracts in place sometime within the next 6 months. Thanks. All right, next, Ms. Shear, discussion of City Code Section 19-206, reduction of the speed limit in residential neighborhoods. And I think particular giving Mr. Somerville and his team some discretion rather than having to go through a public hearing. Is that what we're going to talk about?
We are, council member. So yes, the last committee meeting, y'all tasked me with doing some research into whether or not this is feasible. As y'all know, our current ordinance, it does require the 15% petition of the local residents, a traffic engineering study, the public hearings before it can go to council for approval. And we are bound by the state statute, which is section 56(5)1540. We could potentially streamline our ordinance to remove the petition phase and the public hearing. However, the traffic engineering study would still be required, as well as going obviously through city council. So if this is something that you do wish us to task with an ordinance, we can have that ready and hopefully brought forward for the next committee meeting.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Shear about the report, albeit brief, that you just gave us?
And just to clarify, it would still have to go through the public authority, through city council. We could not direct it just through our director.
It just seems to me, just one person thinking out loud here, that anything we can do to streamline that process of reducing speed limits in neighborhoods and making our streets safer would be a good thing. And, to the extent we're bound by state law to follow certain procedures, great, but it seems pretty cumbersome the way we went through this last process to get a speed reduction on a neighborhood street. So from my perspective, and other members of the committee can chime in, anything that you can do to help us streamline our ordinance to make it as efficient as possible would be helpful.
Yes, council member. I'll try to have the ordinance ready for the next committee to vote on.
That'd be great. And did you say in your report that no matter what, we still have to bring this back to council for a vote, that we cannot give back to our director the discretion to lower a speed limit?
It does require public authority. Also, the roads are very limited by our city roads. It also, section 56(5)1540, it does limit to intersections for decreases. If we wanted to increase that in an urban district, that's got its own set of state rules, as well as decreasing outside of urban districts. So it would be very road specific when these matters come up.
So one follow-up question on that. Is there a distinction between roads that we as a city own and roads that we don't? Can we, on the roads that we own, do this internally without having to follow that state process?
No, this is how they've regulated their drop down to us.
Crazy. Okay. Any questions? Does it suit everybody okay if we at least get this as streamlined as is humanly possible?
Yeah.
Great. All right. I think that by unanimous consent, please bring us back something as streamlined as the law will allow.
Will do.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, next, not really quite sure what this means, but Pedicab Decals is on the agenda with my name next to it. So I'll take the lead on this a little bit, seeing as I think I created this a little bit of misunderstanding. As you all may recall, and I'm not sure anybody was around on the committee when we first tackled the pedicab issue way back 13 years ago in City Council, we have gone through a process of authorizing a certain number of decals. And as our city has grown, you may recall, I think it was now, and somebody help me out, either Mallory or Julia, we by ordinance increase the number of nighttime decals available if we chose to put them out there on the street by 6. We went through a sort of a disjointed process that didn't really get anywhere. And here we are a year later. And I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding on where we are as a city, what rights and obligations are out there and what's going on. As you know, we've gone through COVID, we're on the backside of it. We're about to undertake, and I see Mr. Summerfield was on here. We're going to redo our downtown plan. There's some talk about redoing the tourism management plan. King Street has gone through a number of changes, including but not limited to traffic patterns during the high traffic evening hours, turning it one way, which is an area where there's a lot of activity, including pedicab activity. There has been no demand from the public or the tourism industry that I know of, and I'll stand corrected if anybody on the committee knows anything different, to increase the number of pedicabs out there. It seems to all be working. So rather than have this keep coming back up, it seems to me that perhaps this committee at least needs to make a statement about what we're looking at, what we're looking for, and what we're not. From my perspective, I think where we are is we do have the ability to authorize and go out to procurement some additional tokens. It hasn't been something that's been requested generally and broadly by the public. We are going to go through a really intensive rethink about what happens downtown, particularly on our streets, through the Peninsula Plan and the Tourism Management Plan. So status quo ante seems to be the place we should be. And seeing as I'm the one who sort of brought this up, I guess it wound up on agenda for me to sort of put it back to the committee for discussion and at least a sort of statement as to where we are as a committee going forward, so we can make it clear to people where they stand. So I think, Mr. Somerville, is that kind of where you think we are?
I believe so. I think that sums it up pretty good.
All right. Any questions from anybody? Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I don't know if this is so much a question, if you allow me just to comment.
Of course.
Where we are right now. So we, at your request, approved the 6 additional tokens. It was about 2 years ago now. Is that right, Robbie and council member?
I think that's right.
Yeah. And so admittedly, that first, so council committee and council gives the city the go ahead. We put it out for procurement. And as we, I think all know, that we felt that procurement process was some of the requirements were a little unfair to maybe folks that wanted to get into the business. And so we decided to redo that. And I think we're at a point where we could put it back out to bid. And I heard you at our last meeting, or maybe one before that, about which makes sense, to maybe pause with the downtown plan coming and looking at tourism management again. But I almost felt like, since they were approved, it's kind of on the onus of the city administration to proceed unless council, this committee and council, or more officially tells us, to tap the brakes and wait, maybe even go so far as rescind the 6 tokens that were approved and get the studies done, and then come back and determine whether you want to allow them again, or maybe the number's 10, maybe it's none, I don't know. But I just think it would be more straightforward, and everybody knows what's expected if we ask this committee and council to take a official position on it by either letting us proceed or either telling us, no, on second thought, we're going to rescind the 6 and not offer them definitively at this time.
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to be clear, the 6 that we opened up, have they been filled yet or no?
No.
Okay, so, I mean, I've received, 2 emails of folks requesting, showing their passion for this. I mean, are they allowed to get those 6, or is this where the issue sort of lies?
This is just a matter right now of procurement, of whether or not we put those 6 out for procurement, or we put it on hold, given the fact that 2 years have passed, things have changed. We are looking and rethinking about what happens in and around the peninsula from a number of different angles: planning, tourism, traffic and transportation. And Mayor suggested one way to do it would be to rescind the 6. I think another would be a policy statement from this committee and from council that we're going to sort of keep things status quo ante and wait till we finish the peninsula plan and rethink tourism management. And by the way, I think it's important to put in this conversation, have a long-term plan for what we're going to do on Upper King Street, particularly on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, which, as you know, we've changed traffic patterns, access, and all that. And that's an area that is really congested and has a lot of traffic on it. And adding more really would, I think, if you ask public safety, would be an issue. So that's where we are. It's really a procurement and policy issue at this point.
Okay, I would certainly, this is Councilwoman Parker, I'm going to leave it in the hands of those that know the peninsula the best, as it's not, I don't live and work and play there, but the rescinding of the 6, I thought those 6 were quite possibly already filled, or I guess that's where the issue was, that people weren't able to get that. So, okay, I will listen to y'all's direction on this one.
Councilmember Gregg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How many medallions do we have out for pedicabs right now? How many have been issued?
At night for the fully out there, 30.
Okay. And when do those, I assume there's a rebidding process on those. So when do those come up for bidding, if that's the right word?
It is.
Actually, we just bidded on them last year, August of 2021.
Okay.
So it's basically a 5-year franchise agreement. So it'll be, I guess, 2026 before the 30 are eligible again.
Okay, so it's a lump sum, all 30 at one time every 5 years?
Yes. And again, we got 15 that are permanent, which are, can be used basically 5 a.m. till 3 a.m. And then we got the 15 nighttime decals, which Monday through Friday is from, I believe, 6:30 to 3 a.m. And the weekends, it goes to 5 p.m. to 3 a.m.
Okay. And how many different companies own the medallions right now?
We have 3 active pedicab companies.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? What's the pleasure of the committee in reporting this back to city council? Mayor?
I just would like some definitive statement on whether y'all want us to proceed to issue them or officially hold them or rescind them, one of the three.
Well, I guess seeing as I'm the chairman today, I'm not sure I can make a motion, but to me, it seems that keeping things where they are, letting us go through the process of rethinking King Street and getting the Peninsula Plan and just putting them on hold, rather than having to rescind them and then go through the whole process again, if in fact, when we come out on the other side of the rethink of the peninsula, there is a recommendation to add, there might even be some to subtract, who knows what's going to come out of this. So, I mean, it seems to me to sort of leave it where it is the way to go, but that's just my view of the world. Yes, sir, Councilmember Boyd. Councilmember Gregg. Sorry.
Okay, so the 6 that are currently on hold we're not doing anything with, that we potentially may go back out for bid on. I mean, the emails that we're getting here on city council are folks that, did they bid on these, the 30, again, I'm speaking as having been elected in January. So did those companies that are trying to bid on these 6, did they bid on in the procurement last year?
They submitted, not in August.
Okay.
They submitted the bid when these 6 became available.
Okay.
They submitted their applications, in which there were some concerns with the applications. The ordinance was then changed to allow, I guess, certain companies to be able to bid and then get established in the city. So that was only for these 6 decals.
Okay. And then, Mr. Seekings, to your point, I guess, when do we expect some, I mean, what's the time frame for the tourism plan revision?
I think the one that's going to come first, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor, you probably know more than we do about this, but it's the Peninsula Plan. I think that's getting geared up and ready to go at the planning department. And that'll sort of be an all-encompassing zoning rethink and relook at the peninsula. And clearly it's going to have to include mobility in it. So I think that's probably going to come first. There is a movement to rethink the tourism management plan. I don't think we have any definitive path forward for that yet, but I think it's going to come pretty soon. And then King Street, as you know, is somewhat organic at this point. We're still in the post-COVID, post-May 30th configuration up there on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. If you haven't been there, it's working. It probably can use some adjustments. So all of those are going to be working together.
But to answer your question, you know, when we take upon a peninsula study effort like that, it generally takes a year to get done. So I'd say if we decide to quote put them on hold, for purposes of waiting for that study, it would be at least a year, if not a year and a half.
Okay, and then last question, I promise. Mr. Somerville, have there been any safety issues with the pedicabs, the 30 that are out there right now?
Let me say safety issues. We get calls every now and then regarding the operation of the pedicabs, and I'm sure you heard of the one that was involved in I believe a DUI incident on Meeting Street. I think it was pretty early in the morning. So, but yes, we do get calls every now and then about the operation.
Okay.
Of course, that serious injury wasn't the fault of the pedicab.
No, sir.
Definitively the fault of the automobile driver.
Right.
Correct. All right. So, moment of truth. How are we going to proceed here? This committee, we're going to set a policy. What's y'all's pleasure? I've sort of spoken my piece. The mayor's spoken his. Anybody else?
Councilmember Gregg, what do you think?
I mean, I would say at this point, we put it on hold until we get some more direction from the tourism plan.
Councilmember Parker, any, want to weigh in here?
Sure. I mean, my last comment, just like I said before, I mean, y'all know the peninsula. These are your constituents, that they're living and riding with. I certainly will follow your lead, but at rescind, we put those out there for procurement, and now to rescind them for a year and a half for a study. I guess I'll leave it at this. I mean, I received, 2 pretty passionate emails, and I just don't, are they the only ones applying for these tokens, or are we just shutting 2 people out of this business, and wait a year and a half for a study, or, is it certainly doesn't sound like a safety issue or anything like that. We don't want to, so I'll leave it at that. I mean, I don't know if rescinding them probably would be my first choice to rescind the 6 that we already put out there. But I'll go with the good of the committee and good of council.
And Mayor, to your point, if we have them out there as we go through this process, as we look at the downtown plan, if we don't rescind them, they're still out there available, and we can work in conjunction with the planning department, with the tourism management group. And, while I agree that studies take a good long time, I mean, it may be that we revisit this sooner rather than later, who knows? But I think keeping it status quo ante for now is the best policy move, given all the things that are going on. So that's kind of my view of it.
So, I couldn't really hear all of what Councilmember Parker was saying, but I think it was in sympathy of that as well. Is that correct? Did you hear about it?
Yeah, that's what I heard. That I don't think she was in favor of rescinding. I think.
Okay. So, Councilmember Gregg, you mind putting that in the form of a motion for us?
So I mean, there is no motion, right? Sounds like we're not moving to do anything.
Well, if we can, I think we need a statement from this committee, sort of what our policy is going to be going forward for now.
If it's put it on hold, Councilmember, I just wanted to have it clear, because we're also getting these requests from at least this one group that had aspired to get into the business and wanted the opportunity to bid on these 6 tokens, if you will, and I fully respect those gentlemen and their efforts, but saying that, number one, there's no guarantee, even if we put them out for bid, that they would be the successful bidder. Number 2, I think Councilmember Seekings makes a valid point about over the next year or so, these reviews that we're going to have on the peninsula and the mobility, and Mr. Kelly was on with us earlier today. There's yet another different class of vehicle that's being proposed to us to be added to the mix of carriages, pedicabs, Lime bikes. There's a lot of competing ways to get around out there. So do you want to add 6 more at this time? I just wanted some specific direction from the committee and council.
So I move that we reevaluate this in 6 months?
If that's your motion, we'll undertake it. All right, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, reevaluation, status quo ante for 6 months. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, finally, Ms. Copeland, Ashley River Pedestrian Bridge Intergovernmental Agreement. Been waiting patiently behind the rose bush over there.
I've been hiding behind the rose bush. Yes. Good afternoon, Chairman Seekings and members of the committee. So the agreement before you today is the product of a collaborative effort between legal, The DOT legal and all of their engineers, Federal Highway Association or administration was also overseeing the negotiation. And so this agreement basically covers the design, construction, operation, maintenance, inspection, and management of the Ashley River pedestrian bridge. Hence the bulk of the agreement being 34 pages. And one thing I'd like to point out to you, it details the relationship between the DOT and the city throughout this entire process. And this agreement is actually one piece that is necessary in order for us to get our core and our DHEC permits to start the process rolling. This is also a piece that's required in order for us to qualify and collect the federal grant money in order to build the bridge. So if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to go into a little further detail, but that is what is before you today.
Any questions from the committee? Can I just ask a quick question? I don't know if we've got any of our operations team on. I see Mr. Kronsberg actually back there behind the screen too. Can you just give us a quick reminder or someone what our timeline is on this, where we are in the continuum? Once we enter into this agreement, what we're looking at and what we can expect going forward, please?
Yes. So as you all know, schedules are products of the industry and the best practices that we have as far as design and construction. So I have it here in front of me. Lots of line items, but I'll just give you the big picture milestones. There's a series of processes that happen now that the two shortlisted design teams have the draft RFPs. We anticipate issuing the final RFP, which is one of the milestones in the grant agreement, on August 26th. Now there's a series of forums between those shortlisted design teams and the designers in the city, so we can answer questions and kind of hammer out some of the details that they have based on their experience prior to that issuance of the RFP. Let me go down the list here. And then hopefully at the turn of the year, we will have the technical and cost proposal analysis complete, which will then put us on the road to a construction contract. I know there's lots of dates in between all of that. Happy to try to answer other information that you might, or any questions you might have.
No, I think just generally keeping us updated. I mean, the question we get, as you can well imagine, is when am I going to see something? So I know there's a lot of steps to go forward to do that, but again, this is another one.
And per Julia's comments, everything that you heard this afternoon is a requirement in order to get the final grant agreement done. And again, back to the issuance of the final RFP, that is one of the biggest milestones that we have in the grant agreement. So all of this kind of predicates that.
Gotcha. Councilmember Parker, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since you asked about the timeline, may I also ask just again, what was the final cost and what is this grant money? I understand that it's not the item on the agenda, and that we're just voting on this agreement, but what was the final cost and the city's cost for this?
I think
for the building and maintenance.
I think her question is, what's our anticipated cost of construction when we're all said and done? And I think the answer is 40 million, but I'll let you chime in.
That's correct. That's where we are right now. Once we get through some of these, once we issue the RFP, we will go through alternative technical proposals. So we might come up with a different looking bridge. So right now, the 40 to $41 million number is the number, and hopefully, once they start designing this bridge, that we get into a scenario where we find some cost savings, but we could also find some cost increases, but hopefully not.
Okay, and I'll just end my comment with, I am not for the building of this bridge, obviously for cost reasons and other glaring issues that we need to be handling in the city, but, and for the sake of this agreement, I understand that you just need this to get the grant money. So how much is the supposed grant going to cover of that 40 million?
18 and a half,
Well, really much
really
more
more than that.
because the original grant from the federal government was about 18 and a half, with the county of Charleston, the city of Charleston, and the medical university each pitching in what amounted to about a 20%, 25% match. So when pricing has escalated over the last few years since this was first proposed, and we were able, with the help of SCDOT, to secure an additional $14 million to fully fund us at this point. So really, it's more like 32, 33 million is for from grants, mostly from the federal government, and then the even though some of it comes through the DOT, and the rest was a local match of the city, the county, and MUSC.
Right. All adding up to
Of
plus
8
or minus
million?
40 million.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do want to also publicly acknowledge and thank SCDOT, who this agreement is between us and them. And they have been so kind and cooperative and collaborative in helping us get to this point, sharing with us their design build process, agreeing in this agreement to share with us the management and maintenance responsibilities so that we don't have to go figure that out determining or agreeing that the one bridge tender who is a contract employee of SCDOT could be the same person who would push the button when needed to open the bridge with the other two bridges. So it's really a collaborative effort that's been going on for the last year or two. And of course, I'd like to once again thank Secretary Hall personally for helping us put together the package of the additional funding that made this all possible. So they've been a true partner all the way through, and I'm thankful to the DOT. I know there's a lot of stuff in this agreement because this is serious business, building a bridge over a navigable waterway, and ultimately the bridge will belong to the city of Charleston. It's our bridge, and so that's why this collaboration with the DOT is so important, because as they have to do with their bridges, we need to think about the long-term maintenance and operation of it as well. But Mr. Chairman, I know you agree with me the benefit that this connection brings to our citizens of being able to connect West Ashley and the peninsula is really a long-term game changer for mobility, for safety, for recreation. There's a lot to like about this bridge and getting this done. So I appreciate y'all's support.
And I do agree with you on that. I think we're going to need a motion for this, unless there's any other questions for Ms. Copeland or Mr. Kronsberg. Can I have a motion to allow the mayor to execute this intergovernmental agreement on behalf of the city?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the ayes by a vote of 3-1 have it. Okay, I see we've come well past our allotted time and to the end of the agenda. Is there anything else for the greater good of the city or the Traffic and Transportation Committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn and see you all tomorrow at City Council, if not before.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much. We will see you soon.
Thank you.